Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Firm Returns Weekly. This week, got a few things to discuss. I'll just share my screen. Quite a few things to discuss this week, but I think quite a bit of it is sort of building up for next week, which is where some the big events are happening. tinyBuild, well, no, tinyBuild earnings is the week after that. But some releases of some big games. Yeah, we'll get onto those in a second. But yeah, let's just start off. So we've got Warner Bros. Discovery, tinyBuild, and Aviva to discuss today. So first thing I wanted to mention was there was a couple of new webcast recordings available on the Warner Bros. Discovery Investor Relations website. One was a talk with David Zaslav. Both were kind of question and answer type things with an interviewer. So yeah, interviews, let's say that. So one was an interview with David Zaslav, the CEO, and the other one was an interview with Gunnar Weidenfels, the CFO. And both were good. They provided quite different, covered quite different topics and perspectives and things like that. So yeah, quite complimentary. Quite a lot of stuff that was taken out of both. I did mention a bit in the last week's update about the one with David Zaslav that I was talking about, with their putting news into Max and having live news on there and all that kind of stuff, and talking a bit about sports strategies and just generally strategies for platform and things going forward. With Gunnar, there was it was a bit more complimentary. Like I say, they covered a few different other kind of topics. Quite a bit of talk about because something kind of David skipped over a bit the stuff that was happening. The interviewer asked about the fracas going on between Disney with their ESPN and Charter, and the fact Charter's basically taking Disney off their channels now. So they gonna actually addressed that in a bit more detail. David Zaslav kind of said, I don't really know the details of that, but it didn't talk too much about their relationships with cable platforms and so on. Whereas Gunnar went into quite a bit of depth, talking about how they'd actually successfully brokered deals with Chartered in the last 18 months or whatever, and they'd done many such deals, and it all been going fine, and they were happy, and they felt they were providing more value than they were charging. So both parties were happy and so on. Anyway, so yeah, it was some good stuff in there. Both of them worth listening to. So there's a link here for that. We then had, as I mentioned, I think last week, I was going to see The Nun 2, which is one of the films in the Conjuring franchise, the Conjuring universe, which, by the way, is the highest grossing horror franchise ever. So quite a nice asset to have in the stable of Warner Bros. Discovery there. And it's continuing to deliver. They had, so in its opening weekend in the US, it made $32.6 million. So this put it ahead of the third of the original Conjuring films, most recent one, with The Nun and Annabelle and what have you being more sort of spin-offs. The original sort of trilogy of films. So the third one, which is The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, which I thought was a great film as well. That came out in 2022 and had quite a big impact from the pandemic. So it's already on a steeper trajectory than that, doing better than that one. So you kind of see on this graph here, and the comparison here, The Nun 2 versus Conjuring. So close to 50%, maybe 40% higher than that one in its opening weekend. I was looking to do better than that. but it still is suffering a pandemic hit. The industry, as I mentioned here, the industry hasn't really fully recovered to pre-pandemic. It's still hovering around 75% of pre-pandemic levels. So that is definitely being evidenced in what we're seeing, how we're seeing these movies perform. So if you factor that in, that 25% drop, it would have been more like 43, 44, I think, of what it would actually have done if it had been potentially released pre-pandemic in its opening weekend. So that is, assuming that 75% is roughly accurate. So that would have been a bit closer to the first Nun film, which actually did just shy of 54 million in its opening weekend. So, but yeah, just to give you an evidence of how real this impact is, this film was actually, I think, significantly better than the first one. The first one was a bit of was pretty naff. Wasn't very well reviewed by critics or fans. The second one much better, something like 73% fan rating, which I think is, I definitely agree with. It was a very strong film, just like the third Conjuring film, same director, coincidentally, between the two. So yeah, very high quality film, but it didn't do as well as the first. It isn't doing as well from the current trajectory as the first one. And that is largely just what we're seeing from the pandemic impact. But maybe this means that it'll do better in later windows. So even though it's not maybe doing as well at the box office, it might end up meaning that there's going to be more people paying to view it. Like I know Evil Dead Rise is like a trending film on Amazon right now, and people are paying to rent that or buy that movie on Amazon Prime Video right now. So that's an example maybe of, because that film, Evil Dead Rise, I've got on this chart here in this comparison as well, did similarly to the third Conjuring film. Very, very similar actually trajectory, almost exactly in line with it. And so and the opening weekend was like $400,000 difference, very close. So that just being, I think these films would have done a bit better. But something that is interesting, though, having said that, was this from another studio, this one being Paramount. The Scream 6, the sixth Scream film, did a much closer to a Nun's performance, even though that came out this year as well, and was a pretty good film. I don't think it was as good as the previous one, but Scream 5. But by the by, so yeah, it just shows that, maybe, I guess, there fewer of them or something like that. There's less dilution of the franchise or whatever. Or they have a longer history, I guess, because the original Scream films go back a long way. Same could be said for the Evil Dead, but maybe they're not as popular not as culturally iconic as the Scream films. Anyway, I'm getting off track here. So it looks to be doing quite similarly in performance to the latest Insidious film that was released this year, The Red Door. So that came out just a couple of months ago, and it seems to be doing very similar opening. So maybe we can kind of expect a similar trajectory. And that one did a worldwide box office of 186 million. So that maybe is kind of the ballpark we might be expecting for this one. Evil Dead Rise did about 146 million worldwide box office. But like I say, Evil Dead Rise is a very high trending movie. I think trending higher than Insidious: The Red Door, which is also available on demand right now to rent. So I think there is these movies, they don't cost that much to make anyway. 20 to 40 million, that kind of range we're looking at here, I think is pretty representative. So they make really good returns regardless. So anyway, pretty happy with that. But it is an interesting picture, an interesting insight into film industry. But I have to say though, I think the quality of the film was very good. Great direction. I think that the director they've got on board there, hope he makes some more in the franchise, because they've got a good guy there. Yeah, and it's kind of projected to do about 14 million this weekend, I think, from the numbers.com, their models. So moving on, we've also got, this is one of those big releases coming next week that I was talking about. We've got Mortal Kombat 1, which is set for release on the 19th of September. So Tuesday, I believe that is. And it's already gaining a fair amount of traction from pre-sales. And you can see right now it's already the number 5 top seller on Steam, and it's the number 50th most wishlisted game on Steam as well. And bearing in mind that, you know, this is a game that's probably going to have a bigger player base on consoles than it would on PC anyway. So that is quite a good thing to see at this stage. Yeah, and the other stat we have right now is that for players who bought the premium edition, which is, as we'll get onto the price in a second, a pretty staggering price, players who bought that are already able to play the game a week early. So they've had about 3 or 4 days of being able to play that game already. And currently we're getting that gives us some daily active player counts, and the peak and current player counts have consistently been above 20,000 on Steam in the last few days since launch. I think the peak was the first day was 26,000. So that's concurrent again. So that just gives you an idea of the kind of sales they must have already done on this game. Definitely up in the hundreds of thousands already, just in just for the people who pre-purchased the premium edition. And yeah, just to give you an idea of the prices, the premium edition, which I just mentioned, is £85. So add about 20% to that in dollars. And the standard edition is £60. So, and this compares to, in 2019, we had the Mortal Kombat 11, which is the previous game in the series, which sold about 12 million copies over the 2 years following that, so up until 2021, the end of 2021. And that game sold for about £40 for the standard, and I think they called it the Ultimate Edition, was the version of the equivalent of the premium. Now it's £50. So even the Ultimate Edition was £10 cheaper than the standard edition of this game. 20% different, more expensive just for the difference there. And then with the Ultimate one, it's a massive difference of £35. So but yeah, this is largely down, I think, to Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom selling it for £60 or $70 or whatever. And that's kind of set the precedent now. That's set the baseline, the benchmark level for AAA releases. So you can expect all releases from now on to, I think, be trained to that. And it's kind of a bit of some money was probably left on the table there, because Hogwarts Legacy came out before that game, and I think they were doing that for 50 quid. And if they'd released it after Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, they probably would have ended up players probably would have been prepared to pay 60, because then that was what they saw now as the price of these kind of AAA games. So yeah, potentially some money left on the table there, but certainly future releases, I wouldn't expect AAA games to be going for less than 60 quid now. Yeah, which is somewhat a shame for players, but obviously good for the game developers. But yeah, hopefully players consider they get their money's worth. These games are giving them 100 hours or more of playtime. It's probably not too bad. But yeah, so that's coming out, and I think, yeah, that's we should hopefully see. Well, and the other thing is we've probably got a better marketing capability in the overall company, as we've seen with Barbie and Hogwarts Legacy and stuff like that. So might end up doing better than Mortal Kombat 11 potentially, and we're talking, like I was saying, even just the 20k, and then remember it's going across all platforms simultaneously, so it's already launched on Switch and Xbox and PlayStation, so as well. So people who pre-ordered the premium editions or whatever have already got access to it on those platforms as well. So that's £85 copy for probably across all of them. It could be, they could have, I wouldn't be surprised if they've already sold well over 1 million copies, because it's number 5 top seller Steam already. Wouldn't be surprised if they're selling if they've already sold 1 million copies across all those platforms, and it's not even launched yet. So very good. Yeah, and that would be gross revenue of like 85 million there, but obviously take off cuts from other platforms and so on. But could be a $1 billion one. We'll just have to wait and see. Certainly with the price point and so on, it gives it the potential. It could be $1 billion game, just like Hogwarts Legacy. So we'll see how that goes when it's launched next week. Yeah, and then we've got an update from tinyBuild. So we've got the interim results release and investor call has now been announced. So I've been talking about this the last few weeks. It's now been announced. It's going to be on the 26th of September. So not next week, but the week after. And there'll also be a investor call held open to any I don't even think you have to be an investor. You just need to fill the details into the form and sign up to Investor Meet Company, which is the platform that they're doing it on, and you can tune in and ask questions and so on. Good idea to preload your questions. It has to be done at least a day before, otherwise you're less likely to get it answered, because just the number of questions that already have gone in. So yeah, preloading your question is probably a good idea if you've got any, but obviously we won't have had the results announcement until the day, so there is that to consider there. But yeah, that'll be for the 6 months of the first 6 months of 2023 up to the 30th of June. That will be the period that's covered in those results. So it won't include any of the big successful releases that we had over the summer. Punch Club 2, I Am Future, Black Skylands. Well, none of these games that came out will really be included in those stats there, so in the figures there. So might not give us the best picture of how the company's done this year, but I'm guessing they might mention some information about the sales figures for those games and things like that in this update, just to as they're guiding for the second half. But yeah, you can sign up via the link I've done there, which is also, if that link doesn't work, go via their website, look in the news, and you can look at the latest news thing, which is an update on the results release and in investor call. You can just get a link to Investor Meet Company where you can sign up there. So another bit of news, we've just been given the release date for the highly anticipated Versus Evil release, Broken Roads. And this game is going to be launching. Yeah, so this release date, they released in a trailer. Released an announced trailer that had I think close to 500,000 views on YouTube. It was quite a big trending video. And this and the date that they've announced is the 14th of November, and this is going to be on PC and Xbox. Yeah, I don't think it's in any Game Pass or anything like that. I think it's just going to be for sale on those platforms. But to give you an idea, when I say highly anticipated, the game is currently 153rd in the wishlist rankings on Steam, and it has 14,084 followers. So you could be looking at very similar numbers here. You're looking at very similar numbers here to I Am Future. It's probably the closest example comparison we've had. So that would put it at probably like 150,000 plus wish lists at the time it launches. That's probably how I'd expect it, the kind of numbers I'd expect. And so, you know, a good number of that you'd expect to convert in the first week or two. And then, yeah, and as with those other games, they ended up growing their wishlist to over 200,000 after a couple of weeks as well. So even though they converted those early ones and got the good sales, then a lot of people were wishlisting it to buy in the future in a sales or something like that. So yeah, it's looking very, very high potential. It will be a good, as I've said here, I think it will be a good test for the publishing capabilities of versus Evil compared to tinyBuild. So you've got a game that's got a very similar setup in terms of wish lists at launch and followers and what have you. And we'll just have to see whether they're able to get that initial momentum and deliver on the publishing side of things. They obviously have done pretty well to market the game and get it kind of attention around it. So we'll have to see how that gets delivered at launch and how much of that they're able to convert into sales. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. So I'll keep an eye on that. In November, and still got a fair amount of time for them to market it and build it up between now and November, the 14th of November as well. So a couple of months. So yeah, it'll be good test for Versus Evil as a publisher. And then finally on tinyBuild, wanted to mention that we've got next week on the 22nd of September, which I think is next Friday, we have the first like major DLC for Cartel Tycoon coming out. And this is pretty much seems to be similar size to the original game from what I've sort of seen. It's a brand new large map, 12 regions or something like that, and brand new campaigns and all sorts of new characters to play and stuff like that. So it's a really big addition to the game. And yeah, like I say, the largest update the game has received since its version 1.0 launch in July of 2022. And so it's and the previous updates, as you can have a look if you look on SteamDB at their active player activity graphs, you can see that every time they've done a release in the past of a new update, most of them have been sort of free updates, but they've added content to the game or made changes. They've driven quite a big jump in traffic, which means people have gone in, have been drawn back to the game, and if they're paid ones, bought the expansion and so on. And so this one, yeah, we'll have to see if it does a similar thing. I think given that the game still has a decent number of concurrent players every day, comfortably above 100 every day, sort of peaking a bit higher, and obviously varies at weekends and so on. And then when they've done previous launches, updates, it's taken out well over 500 or whatever. So we'll have to see how this one does. Obviously, if you do have a big spike in players, that means they've sold a good number of copies of the DLC as well, and we don't know what the price is going to be yet. They haven't disclosed that, so it'll be interesting to see how they price that when they launch it next week. But yeah, so I have to check back in a week or two and see how this DLC is done, see whether it's driven up the traffic for the base game as well. And then finally, I wanted to mention some news for Aviva. So Aviva has just announced the sale of its stake in Sing Life, which is a Singapore life insurance company that it was, I think, had about 26% stake in, and plus some debt securities held as well. And yeah, they're selling it to Sumitomo Life Insurance Company for total proceeds of £800 million, which is split between £500 million for the debt portion and £300 million for £500 million for the equity portion, for the 26% or whatever I said, and the £300 million to buy back the company's debt. So this, yeah, I think this seems like a pretty good deal to me, because Sing Life only contributed about £17 million to Aviva's operating profit in 2022, which always had to be like a 49 times. I think as what I calculate, if you could for the 800, maybe a bit less, it's about 20 or 29 times. Yeah, it's something between 30 and 40 5 or 50, something like that kind of range. Certainly, even at the base multiple, it's still close to 30 times what they the operating profit contribution it made last year. And the combined sort of carrying value of the debt and the equity on Aviva's balance sheet that they contributed to the NAV, net asset value for shareholders, was 729 million. So the 800 million figure is obviously above what they're holding on there as well. So it seems like a pretty good deal. And I think the stock actually jumped a bit on the news. So analysts, investors, whatever, seem to be pretty happy with it as well. So yeah, it's good to see doing a bit more consolidation down to their, not consolidation. These divestments are reducing the portfolio down to their, just the core, the businesses, the most profitable ones. So yeah, I think that is going to be it. We've got a few things to look out for next week, as I just mentioned. So I will get back to you all next week. We've probably had a look at those 2 game releases, will be the biggest things, Mortal Kombat 1 and maybe the San Rafael DLC, see how that's helped out Cartel Tycoon. And whatever else comes up during the week. Yeah, so I will see you all in the next episode.